Among the landmarks of Louisiana, there are faded reminders of what we've lost or even forgotten. Common places that seem familiar but distant, even blurred. The old stores and signs and town squares can still be found along the smaller roads, but in just a few more years, they will all be gone. It's too late to save many of the things our grandparents thought would last forever. Maybe the best we can do is enjoy them while we can.
In St. Martinville, people still remember the story of Evangeline waiting for Gabriel. A landmark oak here marks the spot. Here she waited, and she still does in a way, for someone to come along and remember her story. The disappearing landmarks of Louisiana all wait for someone to come along and remember their stories. In this program, we have a few for instances, a few examples of places we are saving, places that are dying, and places we should all miss dearly. People and places and stories of lost Louisiana. Evangeline waits, frozen in time. She waits for someone to read Longfellow's story about her once again. Like a faded picture, she waits still, very still. One of the most prominent photographers of our age chronicled a lost Louisiana for many years. Fonville Wynans passed away a few years ago, but the images that he captured for all of us to enjoy will live forever.
The luminous black and white images of Fonville Wynans are finally being appreciated. But why only now? Is it a need to return to the clarity they picture, or is it for their artistic value alone? The state we know is changing so fast, has changed so dramatically, that all of us at some time have wished we could hold progress in check. Well, a photograph does that, at least on paper. Artists among us, like prophets, it's said, are not recognized in their own lifetimes. Fonville was and is still enjoying international attention for his classic photographs. The critics are still raving.
What do you think of that?
I don't give it any thought.
Okay.
I don't consider this in a class with art. I mean, if somebody else wants to think it's art, well, okay. But to me, it is not made for that. To me, it's made for because I saw something that was interesting, and I just photographed it, that's all.
In 1931, Fonville and two friends sailed off in a $25 boat to explore the Gulf Coast and the inland, untamed waters of Louisiana. He was 20 years old, and piloting his own boat was the definition of freedom.
You can go anywhere on the coast. Little islands and stuff like that, anywhere. We'll go back in the swamps. The boat was 26 feet long, and I could sleep on the boat and cook on the boat. And I had a compass to come to some of the big lakes.
Along the way, he photographed whatever caught his eye.
This is a lighthouse at Eugene Island, which is south of Morgan City. Those oyster boats are coming in from the river. See the river in the background there? Just somebody on the waterfront at Morgan City. I just walking along. They're not poles or anything. I don't know them. Never heard of them, never saw them again. Tony Christovich. He's an oysterman. Made in 1934. I had very little film, so I could not afford to take like 2 shots of this. I just take one. If it's a good picture, fine. If it's not, it's okay with me. I didn't mean for it to be a classic. It just turned out that way.
He used no artificial light. He didn't have one. He sailed to New Orleans and, being a Texan, found the celebrations fantastic. There's a moment in each of his photographs that's a little breathtaking. For his many years and many miles traveled, Fonville was genuinely humble about the importance of his long and far-ranging document of a lost Louisiana.
In fact, their popularity has been amazing to me. Absolutely amazing, because I just took them for granted. I had taken so many photographs. It's unbelievable. It's just hundreds, maybe thousands. All these started out in the Depression when I didn't have any money or films or anything, so I don't know how I managed my films.
On his boat, the Pintail, he putted through the wetlands in the early 30s and spent scarce motion picture film on scenes that now look a century old. He cut it into a film called The Voyage of the Pintail and took it around to schools in Texas until so many children were spending their lunch money to see the exotic swamps and gators that he had to stop. Now we present a rare glimpse at a truly lost Louisiana, the surviving reels of The Voyage of the Pintail.
so many things, it's hard to know where to dip my oar in this great big sea of information.
Preserve your memories, they're all that's left. Well, not always all that's left. In most towns, folks seem to take pretty good care of their city hall. Well, most towns. In Baton Rouge, the story of renovations at the Old State Capitol reads like a fairy tale.
Once upon a time, there was a castle on a hill, and the people would gather there to make decisions about all manner of things. But one day they built a shiny new castle and forgot about the old one for many years, until a wise man came along and said, "Look, the old castle is still beautiful." And the people agreed. They said, "Let's patch up the old castle and paint it like it was new." And that's just what they did, exactly like it was new. This is our castle, the Old State Capitol, as photographed just before its restoration. It was in pretty bad shape, but still haunting its halls were the ghost of our collective history.
We've been able to move quickly, and we've been able to accomplish a great deal in a relatively short period of time. So I've been pleasantly surprised by the efficiency of the people involved.
Roger Busbus has been leading the restoration for more than 2 years.
Well, we've had a few minor surprises. For example, when we were restoring the basement, we discovered 2 cisterns that we had not known existed prior to this restoration. Of course, they were examined by the state archaeologist. We found some pottery shards, a few other items, nothing really significant from a historical perspective, but still it was interesting. And of course, it's been interesting just to see the building return to its 1882 grandeur.
Busbus says he loves this grand dam, and grand it certainly is. Rising from the first high bluff on the Mississippi River, this hill was a meeting place for the Houma and Bayou Gula Indians. It's a weird-looking building. For its time and ours, it's an anachronism. The legislature of 1850 christened it. Fistfights were common over political issues. Here they caught a passion for politics from which we've never recovered.
This is the second most important building in Louisiana from a historical perspective, second only to the Cabildo, and sometimes I'm not willing to yield that point. This building is the heart and soul of Louisiana, and that's not hyperbole, that's the literal truth.
In January 1861, Louisiana seceded from the Union here. The next year, Confederate authorities abandoned Baton Rouge. The Yankees moved in, and those sons of Boston burned it, leaving only the walls of brick 3 feet thick. In 1882, after nearly 20 years of neglect, architect William Ferret completed the refurbishment of the castle.
Now, we, of course, took samples of the paint from the walls, from the woodwork, from the floors in some cases, to make sure that we had the correct color, the right kind of paint, the right kind of consistency. We also examined journals, correspondence, and other items that describe the building after the Ferret restoration.
So you've restored all of these little...
Everything possible. This, of course, is a marble mantel over a coal-burning fireplace, and this was very carefully restored and reconstructed.
It's very nice. Was it pretty cracked?
It was. In fact, parts of it were literally in pieces.
It's very nice. Very nice job.
This was the scene of bitter battles between reformers and old liners. Year after year, they fought with Southern gentility and an occasional caning.
Legislators from the hill country of North Louisiana, from the bayous of South Louisiana, traveled here by boat, by train, by horse, on horseback, by carriage, and so on. When you're in this building, you can almost see across the chasm of time. And this is the chamber of the House of Representatives, one of the most historic rooms in Louisiana. It was in this chamber, the original chamber, that the Secession Convention met. It was in this chamber after the 1881 restoration that there were bitter debates over the first Louisiana lottery, and here in 1929 the impeachment proceedings against Huey Long began.
And these windows really do give it, well, give some rooms a feeling that it's a cathedral in a way.
Exactly.
Are these the original, by the way?
Original to the Ferret restoration, 1881, 1882. Now, many of the panes have been replaced, but the window itself and the nature of the panes,
the same design.
The same as in 1881, 1882. And of course, Ferret tried to reproduce what the original architect, James Dakin, had done in 1849. And of course, that window looks out actually over the Mississippi River. And the Gothic Revival architecture of the building enhances the cathedral essence of this, sort of a cathedral of political history.
Huey Long was nearly impeached here. It gave him such a sour taste for this symbol of the old that he simply built a new state house.
This building was traditional. It represented what he considered an older Louisiana, possibly a more aristocratic Louisiana. He wanted something that would be a little more magnificent, something that would emphasize what he intended his administration to be.
That's right. In fact, Huey put up those WPA-style murals in the new Capitol to celebrate the common man, whereas maybe this was more of an edifice.
Right, a castle on the Mississippi, again associated with that more aristocratic tradition, but a tradition that was typical of the South and typical of Louisiana, and really represented, again, in many cases, a sense of true public service, dedicated public service. But Huey Long preferred the skyscraper with the murals, as you said, that bring to mind Thomas Hart Benton and others.
And how do you know, really, that that was a peachy kind of salmon color?
Very careful scraping. We made sure that we got to the bottom layer of paint and then reproduced that bottom layer exactly. 1882 lives right here.
Even with all this exacting restoration, despite the thorough history displays, there are still stories to tell about the old castle.
Here at one of the upper towers, we're about 4 stories now above ground level. In one of the upper towers, the pages, those young men and later young ladies as well, who would assist in delivering memos on the floor of the House of Representatives, etc. Well, those folks used to use this as something of a romp room, and it seems that they wanted to immortalize themselves along with the legislators they served. Names like J.B. Sullivan from 1911, J. Rieger from what looks like Donaldsonville, Louisiana, put his name to these walls on April 26th of 1913. It looks as though Ray Silvertongue was an Indian from New Mexico who also lived in Edgard, Louisiana. Walker Ronaldson loves Marguerite Rose. I am from New Orleans. I am a page in the house, and my name is Joseph Smith. I am here July 3rd, 1904, but God knows best where he will be July 3rd, 1906. Billy Porteous Jr. was a page in 1912, 1914, 1916, and 1918. He called himself the kid that knows some stuff. I'll bet he did know some stuff. Horace Long from Floyd, Louisiana, was a page in 1904. He wrote, "Think of me, for you will never see me again."
When you're in this building, you can almost see across the chasm of time.
Now, someone will say, you know, times are lean for Louisiana right now, and we've gone and spent money fixing up that drafty old monstrosity. Well, to the people who appreciate things like 1850 castles, the money it costs to restore a Gothic cathedral isn't all that important.
This building has seen Louisiana history in its grandeur and in its tragedy.
It's just something you have to see to feel. Lost Louisiana will continue. It's hard to ignore the crumbling landmarks of Louisiana. A hollowed-out barber shop in Jonesville's nearly abandoned downtown. An old clinic is one symbol of a vanishing age. But look closer. Inside lies another. Rolled up and discarded white picket fencing. One icon of a lost Louisiana nestled inside another. Before our eyes, so many places are becoming icons of a past age. On the way to New Orleans, generations of travelers have known Airline Motors Restaurant. It closed in December of 1993.
I live in Metairie, and for many years, after Mass, we'd come here and have breakfast, and every now and then we'd come and get the andouille gumbo, and just love their food. And it's a nice drive coming from Metairie to here, just getting away from the city.
I've been coming to this place a long time when they used to have LSU ball games, football, and people would stop here and get something to eat. Then when I got married, we leave Metairie to come over here at lunchtime. I mean, at Sunday or something like that. You know? It's a real nice place. And I was surprised to see it in the paper. I said, I can't believe this. I got to read it over again. You know? So today I said, let's go now, because they may leave before we get there.
We'll miss this place.
Ed Lestrade and Dave Loesch work off and on at the refineries around here.
It's a sad thing to see happening. Whenever you lose something like this, it's like kind of losing a friend, you know. This is going to be hard to take, but
we kind of know the good places to eat up and down the river.
It's been a wonderful place to come, you know, frequent over the years.
When I was a kid, when LaPlace Dragway was running, we used to stop here and eat breakfast, and that's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And
So, come on in.
Yep, sit here, right here.
And meet Margaret Watkins. She's been working at Airline Motors for 28 years. And she's glad you dropped in.
But I can sit now. Sit. Yeah. That's it. That's it.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the jabber jive, it loves me.
You can sit anywhere you want this morning. The lunch crowd hasn't really picked up yet. In fact, that's been part of the trouble. The lunch and dinner crowds have been getting smaller lately, and the owner, Lou Wood, says it's just gotten too hard to keep it open, especially 24 hours a day.
Gave it serious thought, and we had no choice.
What's happening?
Just decreasing volume. Decreasing volume runs up your labor cost, different other costs, expenses.
No, he can't keep it open even for the tradition, even if it is a part of the river parishes, as much a part as bonfires, andouille,
Crawfish, the gumbo, fried shrimp. That's what I ordered today, fried shrimp.
And my grandmother worked here for 42 years. And we practically had to take her out on a tray with a little garnish around her because she did it until she absolutely could not do it any longer.
This was like the police station and the fire station and everything. You didn't have these big time deputies. There was one, and the whole town would call here for information. There was a bus stop at one time.
When Airline Motors opened, Franklin Roosevelt was pledging neutrality in the European War, and Amelia Earhart just turned up missing. Joe Louis knocked out James Braddock to become the world's heavyweight champ, and automobile and steel workers won their first big contracts. Orson Welles scared the wits out of the nation with War of the Worlds, and John Steinbeck published The Grapes of Wrath. Most of the country was being wired with electricity. Small promise, since few people could afford such luxurious home appliances. It wasn't nearly the end of the Great Depression. In Louisiana, most people were still farmers, and all farmers were dirt poor. In California, photographer Dorothea Lange snapped a few photos of a 32-year-old homeless widow named Florence Thompson. She gave the Depression a human face, and that face is still burned in our national memory, an icon of an age. An icon of an age.
A hamburger was 15 cents. A bowl of gumbo was 50 cents, and when you think of the price of it today, and like a plate lunch was 40 cents. And when you worked on the night shift, they used to give us some little bitty bags, and you had to put a level spoon of sugar in it. You couldn't get sugar, you know.
Because it was rationed.
Yeah.
In the war.
So,
yeah.
when I started, and then the beer, the little beer we got, we saved it for the longshoremen when they got off. Every Thursday and Friday, there was payday for different groups. They'd cash their check over there, come in here. We'd make hamburgers and put them in a big dish pan, all wrapped. We'd hand them a hamburger and collect, because we had a register we used to collect, and then go to the bar and get their beer. The bar was right across back here. We used to keep our beer for Thursday and Friday evenings.
In the 40s?
Mm-hmm.
Dippy is how most of her regular customers call her. The nickname's origin is lost now. Dippy scoots around tables and dashes orders into the kitchen faster than waitresses decades her junior. The other workers know to stay out of her way.
When the cashier wouldn't come out. We used to work 12-hour shifts when I started. But I like to work. Work never bothered me. That's why everybody said, what are you going to do? I says, I don't know. I guess I'll still get up at 4 o'clock.
There's a job to do, and Dippy does it well. Dippy has worked here for 47 years.
1937.
H.C. Codum Jr. goes way back with Airline Motors, too. He surveyed the land before it was built. It started out as a Chevrolet dealership. Then in 1939, they added the first coffee counter. Today, he's just another guest who just had to return before it closed to see the sign he made in 1957.
Up on top of the building. See that big metal framework with the sign, Airline Motors? I built that myself. Now that has wings on it that go way back under the roof to support it, keep it from
What's it
shaking.
made of?
It's made of steel. It's all welded.
You did all the welding too?
I did the welding myself, yeah. And these...
what is the design? Is it supposed to be a musical note, or?
That's what it's designed
Is it supposed to be a musical note?
A musical note, right. This trim along the front of the building here is stainless steel. That's been up there ever since about 1957. It's never rusted or anything like that. Earl Long used to stop here. Bill Dodd was a regular attendee.
Because at the time it was practically at least a half-a-day trip.
From New Orleans to Baton
On the
Rouge.
airline.
Right.
You had to stop for lunch somewhere.
That's right.
And have a good andouille and chicken dinner gumbo, which we did.
They all came to say goodbye. Leslie Vicknair pumped gas here in 1949.
And they always had a good dinner. You can always bet on it. Whatever we liked, it was here.
What did you like?
I used to love the steak and the butter beans. And then they had always get good snap beans. I used to enjoy that.
Therese Vicknair brought her daughter and grandchildren out to eat here one last time.
And this is actually the cheapest place you could eat. And we enjoyed the food. It's the type of food that we cook at home.
Did people simply stop coming?
Sometimes we would come at night and there was only 5 tables. So, you know, you could see the decline in the people coming.
Well, why don't you love me like you used to do? How come you treat me like a worn-out shoe?
They did go elsewhere, to Shoney's or McDonald's, the chains again eclipsing the local color. In fairness, though, Airline Motors was once the big new restaurant of its day. Smaller diners of the 30s didn't boast shiny aluminum stools bolted to the floor. Airline Motors enticed the hungry with the promise of air conditioning. It was convenient and pleasant. And now it's overtaken by the more convenient. But more pleasant? Does anyone express loyalty to chain restaurants like these patrons do for Dippy's service and Airline Motors traditions.
Biggest hotels in New Orleans brag about food and everything, but you're not going to find the cooking any better than what you're going to get right here.
After it closes down, you might not find this kind of cooking at all anymore.
No, that's what we're afraid of. That's what we're afraid of. We come every Sunday. We've been coming every Sunday now for 15 years.
Some people have been coming here for 50 years.
Oh, yeah. Airline Motors picked the girls up, and we took them down to the Army base to dance. We bring them back home again in the evening. They're well chaperoned, too. All of them nice girls.
Airline Motors opened 57 years ago, and now it is gone forever, leaving just an empty feeling in St. John Parish. And on the jukebox, one more song as an appropriate final score. Of course, it was an oldie but goodie. A song called For the Good Times.
You can still find a few of these in Louisiana, these diners. This is Granny's, home of the home-style plate lunch, the sign says. It, too, is in a great location. The town of DeVille has been since the 40s. They say in the real estate trade, location is everything. But while being on a well-traveled highway was good for Airline Motors and is fine for Granny's, being only near a well-traveled road is doing in a lot of small towns along our Highway 1. It's a familiar lament across America. So many small towns have already disappeared, the whole question of preserving them can seem futile. When an interstate highway is built paralleling an old two-lane road, the towns along it enter an economic drought. It happens every day somewhere in America. One more person leaves, one more business folds. Cars and trucks still pour through North Louisiana, but they take I-49 now, rolling past exit ramps without a second's thought to stopping. And you can well imagine they are missing something of the real Louisiana each time they decide not to roll off that comforting concrete ribbon. We might take 49 for speed, but there's something special about the original 300-mile layout we can't take for granted. Of all the roads, it's our most historic, starting, or if your perspective will allow you to say it, ending here in Grand Isle. Highway 1 cuts an almost completely diagonal path through the northwestern part of the state, ending up eventually at a point where Texas and Arkansas intersect just north of Shreveport.
It does more than cut directly across the heart of Louisiana, it embodies it. And the people who live along Louisiana's Highway 1 talk of little else these days but how sad it is to be forgotten.
Well, I run the store 20 years, and then I've been here making hamburgers since April.
How has business changed?
Oh, it's changed considerably, but the type of business I'm in now, the local people keep me up. And if it wasn't for the local people, I wouldn't be here.
Ruby Fuller is holding on in the small town of Derry. Sparse times have whittled her general store into a lunchroom. The shelves along the wall stand empty but testify volumes about lost prosperity. The local farmers drop by to talk, but travelers? No, not anymore. Hardly anyone out there now.
We had a grocery store, gas and everything. People come here to get almost anything they needed. Now all they can get is a hamburger.
Why so? The traffic just disappeared?
Traffic disappeared. Just went right on by.
The cattlemen here share a kind of sour grapes attitude. We got along before the out-of-towners, and we'll do it again, they say. But the last time Derry was disconnected from a well-traveled road was in the 1930s, before Highway 1. It's the same story for most of the little places.
This used to be one of the most profitable gas stations just north of Alexandria, here in a town called Boyce. Now, Highway 1 traffic used to pass right in front of the gas station, and it was doing very well. I-49 wasn't completed into Alexandria, didn't quite touch the northern part of town. When the interstate was finished, so was this business.
50 miles north in Armington,
the corner of Highway 84 and LA1 used to support 4 gas stations. Already 1 is closed, and with traffic patterns down 70 to 80%, it can't be long before one of the 3 remaining goes as well.
in Harmon, you can't tell when the grocery store went under. In Powhatan, the number of cars is down so drastically, the one-man police force is astounded.
Oh yeah, about say 80 or 90% of it. Well, sometimes don't look like nobody even in the country, in the world. Then sometimes they have ball games, and then it have pretty good traffic at times.
Are you one of these guys that sits out there?
That's right, I'm the one. I'm the bad man set up there. That's right. They call it a speed trap town.
Normally a town that some would call a speed trap doesn't like to talk about how much it collects from lawbreakers, but this is different.
The speeding ticket fine took care of the town. I can tell you that now. I wrote a million tickets. I've seen time where I'd write 2, 3 books of them and take in maybe $15,000, $20,000 a month. I did do it.
You couldn't look out the door and not see a car passing. Mm-hmm. Now there's one maybe every 15, 20, or 30 minutes.
So the number of people passing on one is way down.
Way down.
Strangely, business at this store hasn't changed.
They didn't stop. They were traveling through.
Oh, they never stopped in the first place?
They never stopped in the first place.
Mostly all local people.
Up Highway 1 a few more miles, looking for signs of life. In the 1950s, the Blue Light Inn was home to country bluesmen and rockabilly bands. It was still hopping in the 1990s, but the owner says the people who pass through looking for a good time now pass by on the way to Shreveport on I-49. The traffic on some rural highways around here is down 80% since 49 opened. But there doesn't seem to be anything anyone can do about it. To pull travelers off the interstate, you have to tell them about the place, and billboards are forbidden along Scenic 49. A tourism campaign to advertise this country charm is only just starting. That's years too late for some small towns. As sad as this abandonment seems, there are pockets of hope along some of those main streets.
Yeah, I'm Joe Sampson, mayor of Niagara. How you doing? Let me give you one of our little souvenirs. Where y'all from? France, good. Give her one. Natchitoches.
When Natchitoches Mayor Joe Sampty sees a Winnebago in his town, he flags it down and gives anyone inside a big country howdy, slapping I Love Natchitoches stickers everywhere he goes.
They'd only spoke French, Joe. They didn't know you were the mayor.
That's right.
All right.
You have to admire that sense of enthusiasm. It's a widespread feeling in this narrow river town. Instead of waiting for interstate travelers to find Natchitoches, the town went to the interstate, pushing the city limits 2 miles to meet 49 and reap taxes from a major off-ramp. Not all towns can do that, of course, but where there's a spirit of success, there must be a way. On the way south, we stopped where everyone stops, Lee's Pies in LeCompte. The owners bought a plot of land by the new interstate and thought about moving out there, but business, come to find, did not turn down.
We stopped here every time we came home and every time we went back to Shreveport.
Some of the waitresses have been here so long that they're heating bottles for parents, that they used to heat bottles for the parents. So it's a tradition, you know, for them to stop here.
And why? Because it's real.
When did you start? And you started in Cheneyville?
In Cheney.
When was that? Tell me about that.
1928. Well, like I said, they didn't even have a good highway through here at that time. That came after we moved there. And nobody had any money, and there was very little traffic. So it didn't take too much to get going, you know. Money and experience. And Lee would get out on the front, and a car would come by, and he'd holler at them, you know, and then some of them turn around, come back to see why he yelled at them, you know. And he'd say, well, how can you spend money with me going by here 60 miles an hour? And it would turn out to be good customers.
Maybe Lee Johnson had the right idea 60 years ago. Do anything to make them slow down and look. Before we may notice it, though, many towns will be disappearing. Before that happens, there's still an opportunity to visit. Before the sun sets on another scenic highway, there is still time left in the day to travel Louisiana's road less taken.